everybody, and welcome to episode 17 of the Bao Podcast. Today I have the honor of welcoming Kristof De Jaeger. Kristof is the director of Inhout, a company specializing in timber frame construction. Here, they focus on sustainable business using bio-ecological materials, and since 2020, they have also been making modular homes under the name of Mobble. This is the result of a collaboration with the University of Ghent. These houses, Mobbles, are also made from sustainable materials, wood frame with bio-ecological insulation materials, and are flexible and adaptable according to the needs of the moment and of the client. We at Bao Living had already had the honors to work with Mobble a couple of years ago when they just started, and I personally love the idea behind it, and Kristof is one of the guests that has been on our list to come on the podcast for quite a long time. So I'm very happy you're here. How are you doing today, Kristof?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
That's no problem at all. We're very happy that you made some time to come and do the story of Mobble. Maybe we always try to start with a little general introduction of the person that's sitting at the table. So maybe that's a good place to start. Why did your interest come from in the environmental construction or the modular construction, and how did you end up starting Mobble?
Okay, well, maybe first of all, I'm not that long with the company, and now I'm 3 years with the company, and in fact, Inhout is founded by my business partner, Maarten. He started the company 16 years ago. Maarten, he wanted some support because, like you said, a couple of years ago, the University of Ghent, they come up with an idea with the Mobble, a modular, flexible house. They presented that idea to Maarten, and Maarten was very interested and wanted to get started with that idea, with that product. And so Maarten was looking for some support, and that's why I came in. So it's now 3 years ago that I came into the company, and that's today we are 3 business partners. We have 3 business partners, so Maarten, Femke, and myself. And each of us, we have very dedicated tasks within the company. So Maarten, he is really focusing on the Mobble, more on the operational management of the Mobble. Then we have Femke, who is dealing with the other business unit, because in fact we have 2 business units within our company, Mobble, that was started 3 years ago, but then also the part where that is located in Nazareth. There we focusing on renovation projects, and Femke is dealing with operational management of that part. So my responsibility within the company is the sales and the marketing, and on top of that, the general management of the company.
Okay. And it was started 3 years ago?
In fact, University of Ghent, they started with the idea a couple of some years ago. I think 4 or 5 years ago, they started with the idea. They also they developed it. They did research, and it was 3 years ago that they came to our company with the idea, and they asked us if we were prepared to industrialize the product, and that's what we did. So 3 years ago, 2 years ago, we started building the first house.
Okay, and to make it very clear towards the listeners, how I think of Mobble is your modular builders.
Yes.
But am I correct in saying that your main USP in comparison with the other modular buildings really is that circular and environmental approach?
That's correct indeed, yes. So we built our house completely in our factory, so modular. The house is can exist out of one or more modules, depending on the size and on how it looks like. But then yes, so our idea is that we should make something that later on can be again disassembled, and where we can, for instance, in our case, our walls can be reused in other projects. So if 10 or 20 years later, our customer, they decide to disassemble the house, this is completely possible. So they can, or we can completely disassemble it and use the parts in other projects. And that's of course the idea of the circularity. This is one of the big challenges in the construction industry, that today we are a linear economy, but of course we have to move towards a circular economy.
Mm-hmm. And the system itself is unique in the fact that you can disassemble the different wall elements.
Correct.
So the walls themselves are made out of cross-laminated timber?
No, we are not using cross-laminated timber. In fact, it's frame timber that is completely insulated with healthy and sustainable insulation materials. So we have different materials depending also on the needs and the wishes of our customers. But yes, our design of our houses is really taking circularity into account, because that's very important, that you in let's say in the beginning already think about circularity.
Mm-hmm.
That not only us but also the designer thinks on, okay, later on how can we disassemble everything, and how can we make sure that we don't have to scrap everything, but that we can reuse certain parts into other projects.
Okay. But the life cycle of a Mobble can be equally long as a traditional built modular home.
That's correct. Yes, it can be equally long than a traditional built home in general. So it's our houses, they will last for generations. So 50, 100, 150 years, you name it. The difference is that our houses are built according to a certain model. It's the model of Stuart Brand. He decided that you should build your house in different layers, and each layer has a certain age. So for instance, the construction as such, it will last for, like I said, 100 years. But for instance, the techniques, as you know very well, techniques, probably in 10 or in 20 years, techniques will need to be changed, need to be refurbished. And because we put, for instance, our techniques in a different layer, a layer that is very easily accessible, you can also easily refurbish your house and, for instance, change the techniques without having to change the wall and the insulation and so on. So this is also an idea where the University of Ghent came up with, and again is very is very future-proof, and that's why we liked this idea so much.
Mm-hmm. So the vision behind the Mobble is that you need to build in layers, according to the model, according to the vision of the Stuart Brand.
Stuart Brand. Yes.
Stuart Brand.
Yep.
And the uniqueness of the Mobble unit or the Mobble system is that the outer layer can be fully disassembled and reused.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Interesting.
Yeah.
And is it like, do you offer today a value for if they would disassemble and they would send the elements back to you?
Well, that's a good question. Now we have the first project where we have an agreement with our customer that it's a kind of a buyback option. So we have an agreement with the customer that we will buy the house back after a certain period. Because in that case, it's what we call in Flemish zorgwoning. So it's they will install the house into their garden. It's for their parents, and of course. This is kind of temporary. After a couple of years, of course we don't know when, but after a couple of years, this house might be empty again. And then we are, of course, willing to buy it back. Of course, they can also sell it on the market. So that's a possibility too. But we can guarantee them that we have indeed a certain value for that house, because we know today in advance that this house will have a big value for us, because we can completely disassemble it. We can refurbish it where needed, or we can refurbish it and put it on the market, or we can completely disassemble it and use the certain components again in different projects.
That's very cool.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I didn't know that you were already offering that option towards the clients.
Yeah, that's now the first time that we do. Yeah.
Okay.
So, So that's certainly an option.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And you've been selling them now for 3 years?
We started, the first one we sold was in 2020.
Okay.
So now it's the second. We are about 2 years on the market, yes.
And according to my experience from the market and how I see the market evolve, I have seen that the concept of modular homes has expanded rapidly in those last couple of years.
Yes.
I don't know if you've experienced the same.
Sure. Yes. We've experienced that it's changing, but from our point of view, it's not fast enough.
Right. Yes.
For instance, if you would look at the Netherlands, there you see that they have huge projects. There was one project where we also offered our Mobble, and unfortunately we were not selected. But it was a very good learning case for us, because they were really asking to offer 105 modular homes, and they already knew that those houses should be I think in 5 years they would replace, or they would put those houses onto another location in the next 5 years. So they have really great ideas in the Netherlands, where here in Belgium, indeed, like you said, we see that it's evolving, but it's very slow. Mm-hmm. And that's also why we are convinced that also in the next coming years, a lot will change also in Belgium, because as we all know, in the Netherlands, they are always a little bit faster than us. And if we see what's happening in the Netherlands, we are pretty sure that also here in Belgium, things will change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can only agree with that statement. If we look at our northern neighbors, they're always a couple of years ahead of us.
Yes, exactly.
We've noticed this as well.
Yeah.
With the option of the buyback, in combination with the circular building method, there's no buyback without the circular building method, I assume. Are you unique? Are you the only ones today in the Belgian or Benelux market that offer this?
As far as we know, we are unique with this. Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Because, like you said, we see also other companies popping up that are modular, that offer modular constructions. However, like I said, with circularity, the idea is that you think about this in the beginning. When you design something, you think about circularity, because afterwards, when you have glued everything together, of course, there will be no circularity. So it's a different way of thinking. It's a different way of building things. It's we have to be honest, it's not always the cheapest way of doing things, but later on we will get a lot of advantages out of it. Mm-hmm. Because, of course, we have been, and that's also the strength of working together with the University of Ghent, for instance. They have helped us to understand what was necessary. They have helped us also to design and to calculate, to make strength calculations and so on. All this kind of things, of course, are very important if you want to if you want to be a kind of a pioneer and if you want to change certain things. So,
It sounds like it's a huge competitive advantage, or it sounds so logical that I would assume that if you're a modular builder and you're not looking at this, you are gonna get in trouble in the next couple of years.
That's we are also sure that this is indeed an advantage. However, what we see is that not everybody is looking far ahead. Some people they decide to buy a modular building, maybe not thinking about the next coming years. They buy something, for instance, that might be cheaper as our modules, but then later on, indeed, like you said, you'll have a big issue because later, if you want to sell it again, or if you want to change your house, because the needs might be different. For instance, especially if young people, they buy a house, well, later on they might have children, later on they want to have an office, a home office. Well, if you have a house that is not adaptable, that is not changeable, of course this will limit your freedom. And again, this is the kind of unique advantages we have, and we are pretty sure that later on those advantages they will we won't have to sell them anymore. Everybody will explain, will recognize and will understand those advantages. But today, like I said, it's sometimes difficult to convince people of those advantages.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever thought about a leasing model?
Yes, we have thought about it, and we are working on it.
Okay.
But today we do not have it yet.
Okay.
But it's certainly something that we think it might also be a good advantage. We see models where, and I'm thinking of the name, but you see models where you, as a company, you rent something out, including maintenance, energy costs, and so on. Also, this would, for us, be a great model because we are absolutely sure and we are convinced that with our Mobbles, you have very little maintenance. Everything is built with very sustainable and very high quality materials. And on top of that, we also have a house that is very low in energy level. All our houses have a very low E level, and this is because of different reasons. First of all, because, like I said, we use very good sustainable materials, like the insulation materials. They are high level. That's one thing. Secondly, the techniques we are using, like the heating pumps we install in our houses, also have a very low energy needs. So this combination of all this means that your house will be future-proof, that you don't need a lot of energy, because today there's a very hot item, of course, energy. So you won't need a lot of energy, and we could, like I said, and that's what we would like to do in the future. We could offer a leasing program or a leasing option where all this is included, because again, we are convinced that it won't cost us a lot in order to provide that to you. So that's where the direction we want to go also with our Mobble.
So more from a cost-based pricing, like you buy us, you pay us now this amount of money and you own it, more towards a cost of usage.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
But that's something that when I talk to big developers or big players in the industry right now, that is something that's also been really moving and switching in the market on a building level.
Correct.
That they're going from cost of construction to cost of ownership. Yes. And that also the government and these big real estate players, that they take this into consideration, like the cost of buying it or building it is no longer the main, or not only the main element that they're looking at, it's also the entire cost of owning and living and using the building itself. That's gonna be a bigger determinant in the
and
the decision-making process.
It's in fact the term they are using. It's as a service. It's like you have the light as a service. So you're not buying lamps anymore. You're buying light as a service, which means that the usage of the service or the usage of the light and the energy usage of the light needs to be low, because it's also the advantage of the company producing those lights. So you have light as a service. I think you have lift as a service. So you have a lot of different modules already, and I think housing as a service might be also one of this, or Mobble as a service. Yeah.
And it sounds good. Mobble as a service.
Sure. Yeah.
How does a collaboration with a university go? How does that work? Like, because they developed the technology behind it, and you are commercializing it now. Is that? I've never. It's the first time it's the 17th podcast we do now, and also in learning about the market, it's the first time I have heard this type of collaboration be a thing in the Belgian market. There are probably more of them, but in the construction market, it's the first time I've heard this. So could you maybe explain a little bit more how something like that works?
Yes. Well, today the collaboration is very limited. In fact, what happened is they have done all the development, and it was rather by coincidence that Maarten met somebody, the professor at the university, Nathan van den Bossen, and by talking to each other, they decided, yes, maybe we should do something together. And then we did a Vlaio project to further look on how we can industrialize that project. But today, in fact, we are the owner of Mobble. So we, in fact, bought everything from the university. So we are independent. However, we, on a regular basis, we do things together. When we have questions, we can always reach out and ask them. But also, now recently, they asked us, well, we have a project, would you like to contribute, or could it be possible that, for instance, we build something into your factory or together? So it's a very nice and open relationship we have. But like I said, for the Mobble, in fact, the development was very intensive project. But today we are independent. We have very good experience with that way of working. It was very nice.
Yeah, sounds great. I always at the idea that a university, when they develop something and they are commercializing it, that they always have like some kind of licensing model where they get some part of the revenue. But
I guess that's possible. It's not the case with us. No.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
What are the biggest hurdles you see today that are blocking the bigger implementation of this type of system? Because there is a lot of legislation already about environmental construction. Mm-hmm. I think the entire EPB legislation did a lot about the cost of living and the environmental impact of living in a building that we just discussed.
Yep.
But we are now seeing with the European taxonomy law that's coming up that there's going to be a shift more towards focusing on the materials that are used in constructing a building, as well as trying to get the materials that are part of the building back out of them, or give them a second life at the end of the life cycle of the current configuration.
Yep.
And then when I hear you talk about the capabilities of Mobble, it seems like a very straightforward system to implement on a big scale. I think my main question is what are the biggest hurdles you see today towards implementing this on an even bigger scale as it is today?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think first of all, people are not yet aware of the advantages. Not yet. I think today people, especially in Belgium, they use what they know. So it's for us, it's we have a timeline where we said, okay, in 2020 we started, and 2022 today we wanted to do more private housing, and that's what we are currently doing. But yes, indeed, in a couple of years we have the ambition to do bigger projects. But of course, we are also still in a learning process. For the I think I have to count how many houses we've built. I think probably 10 houses we have built so far. All those houses we have learned from every house. We have learned something. So once we go through that learning curve, we are really much convinced that this will be, of course, a solution, like you said, for many projects, and also the bigger projects. The biggest hurdle we see today is also cost still. First of all, it has cost us quite a bit of money to, of course, develop everything. But also, now we've been focusing a lot on standardization, on efficiency, and all this goes together with volume. So the more houses we can build, and especially if we can build more or less similar houses, I'm not saying that every house should look the same, because everything is custom made in our case. So Mobble is really a custom-made product, so every design looks a little bit different, but that doesn't mean that you can standardize certain things in the process. And this is our biggest advantage. This is the biggest advantage of modular building, is that, or one of the biggest advantages, is that you can standardize, that you can do things much more efficient, that you can make sure that mistakes don't happen. And if a mistake happens, of course, it shouldn't happen for the second time. And those are the things that today in the construction industry happens all the time. Every project is a new development. And with modular building, you have certain ways of doing things. You have, of course, you're working in a factory, you're independent of the weather. Those are all other advantages. But like I said, a big advantage is that you can work much more efficient, that you can standardize, that you can work with machinery, and as such reduce the production time, as such reduce the labor cost, which is also a very big cost in Belgium. And again, if we refer to the Netherlands, there you see that you have big companies, modular building companies that have really production line where they build houses like the automotive industry, more or less. And this is, for me, this is the way to go, especially if we want to make housing affordable again, because today, especially the last couple of years, prices have gone up, raw material pricing, but also labor cost has gone up. And I think we have to be honest that today it's very difficult to buy a house or to afford a house. And by industrialization, by standardization, by modular building, I'm pretty sure, and I think Bao Living is also a nice example of that. By doing all these kind of things, you can increase efficiency and by the end lower the cost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's very well explained, the philosophy that's also behind what we try to do. Mm-hmm. I always call it productification.
Okay, yeah.
Like, I don't know if it's a real word, but yeah, precisely what you explained. Today, every building is differently, and all the learnings that get done in that one building are not captured for the next one, which is so silly and inefficient. Yeah. So it's the exact same philosophy we try to do for Sam as well. Yeah. Every time we build it once, we learn and we put it in the digital copy, in the digital files that then get sent back to the production for a next project. So every time we build it, it's better than the previous time we've built it. Yeah. Which, if you would just imagine, that has been the case throughout the recent history of construction, I can't even imagine what type of cool buildings we would be living in by now. Yeah. Because that learning loop, I think, really is, as you explained so well, crucial towards getting the costs down and making it more affordable and sustainable as well.
And that's exactly what's happening in all other industries. I think the construction industry is really behind on that aspect, and I think now it's time to move towards that direction, which I'm not saying that today or tomorrow every building needs to be modular, but I think and that also goes for the materials, using the different materials. I think for every project you should look what material or what production method is the best. And I think in a lot of cases it might be a combination of concrete, of wood, of doing things on the site, or indeed doing things in a factory where you can do a lot of things much more efficient. And if you combine all those different materials and techniques, you might end up with a very nice result. And again, it doesn't mean that every house will look the same. The contrary, but you'll have much more efficiency. You'll have product optimization, less waste. All these kind of things are advantages of modular building.
Absolutely. I always think about I compare it a lot with the car industry.
Yeah,
like the process they went through in the last 100 years. Let's call it.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of construction.
Yeah.
And just the idea, if you would compare how a car gets built today with a building, it would be so silly, because it would be the same as if you would order a car. They would supply 10,000 parts that are in a car, and they would send it all to your driveway, and then like 20 different people with all their own specialties start assembling that car in the rain, in the wind, on your driveway. And that's how we do it today for buildings. And it's so silly, because if you think about it in that way, you just feel like, of course, that's not the best way to do it. And of course, a lot of stuff is going to go wrong, and things are going to get lost, and people are going to argue on the driveway because it's just not, it doesn't work.
And it will be extremely expensive.
And extremely expensive. I remember when we started with Bao as well, and we got into the negotiations with bigger developers and contractors, and I always heard that figure coming back, 10 to 15% is calculated error margin. So if we build a building of, let's keep it easy, 1 million, 100 to 150,000 euros of that 1 million is just calculated in error margin of all the different contractors that are involved with building that one building.
Yeah.
So if you can get that lower, that alone can go, if you can bring it to, let's say, 3%, that's 12% lower cost price. So.
Yeah.
All right. Kristof, maybe to bring it a little bit more back to you as a person, where did your interest come from to start focusing on this construction industry, and more specifically the environmental aspect of it?
Well, I'm an engineer. My background is an engineer, and it was more or less by accident that I met Maarten. So we have common friends, let's say. And when I heard Maarten's story about how he started the company now 16 years ago, with indeed using only environmental materials and healthy and sustainable.
Sorry to interrupt, but 16 years ago, then that was Inhout, and that's more a general construction company.
Correct.
Just to make it clear to the audience.
Yeah. Thank you for making that clear. That's indeed in general construction company. However, also there our focus is on healthy and sustainable materials.
Okay.
So if you would come to Inhout and say, look, I want to build a house made out of concrete. We would say good luck, but we won't offer that. We won't make an offer for that. So that's Maarten always had the idea to have something, to build a company, but really thinking about sustainability, about environmentally friendly materials, and of course, Mobble is a very nice extension of that. Mm-hmm. So, but yes, it was So when Martin explained me his philosophy and his vision and his ideas, I was really convinced that yes, this is the way we have to go. Because at that point, I had not a lot of experience in construction. So it was then that I thought, yes, this is something I can stand myself behind, and I can help to really create kind of impact, because that's what we, as a small company, and I think also Bao Living wants to do. We want to somehow help to change that very old-fashioned industry and create somehow some impact, and that's what I want to do. I think I can say that I'm an entrepreneur. I also, my father was entrepreneur, so it's like to grow a business, and it's like it's nice, better. It's nice to grow a business, and it's nice to somehow change things. And of course, I know that construction industry is very difficult to change, but somebody has to do it. And if we all, as small entrepreneurs and pioneers, if we all try to do something and work together, then I'm pretty sure that will have impact somehow.
Absolutely. What was your background before you because this is the first time you're active in construction?
I've studied as an engineer, and I worked for a long time for the company, the international but Belgian company Bekaert.
Right.
Yeah. So
that's a well-known name, but what do they do again?
They do steel wire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And
so that's the opposite, basically, of what you do today.
Yes, it's very different. It's very different. Not only, indeed, the industry is different, but also, of course, the way of working is different. Like I said, it was an international company. I've learned a lot during that period. But today we are an SME. And also there are a lot of differences, of course. We have a small team. Today we have in total Inhout and Mobble, we have 25 people. But it's still a very small team. And also there, I would say that working in a small team is nice. But it shows how important every team member is. It's you can have great ideas, but if you don't have the people that support that idea and that more or less share the passion and the vision, then it's very difficult to achieve those goals or your goals. And I think I'm very honored that I can work together with a team, like I said, that is very dedicated, but also with two business partners like Maarten and Femke that are really dedicated, that have the same vision, that have the similar ideas. Of course, we are very different too, so we have also once in a while we have discussions, but that's sometimes necessary.
Very normal.
Yeah, that's normal. But by the end, everybody knows what to do, and we trust each other, and I think that's the way to go, and that's how we would like to achieve our goals and grow the business.
And that's always something I'm wondering about, because we started with Bao immediately after graduation, so I've never worked anywhere else.
Okay.
Do you think it's an advantage or a disadvantage that you first had some professional experience in a bigger, larger organization, and that you got to see and experience and learn how a successful big organization functions before you started managing your own business? Do you look at it as a positive or a negative, or do the benefits outweigh the downsides, basically?
I certainly see it as a benefit. I'm not saying that it's not possible without, certainly not. But yes, I've learned a lot. You see how a big international company is working. Of course, sometimes you don't, because of course it is such a big company. Of course, you don't see the whole picture, and that's maybe the disadvantage, that you're focusing on a smaller part of a big company. Where if you're starting your own company, you have to do everything, right? So, but I think for me, in my case, it was an advantage. When I started when I joined better Inhout, I knew already what I wanted and what I do not want. And today, I think we can still rely on that. Also, Maarten has at a certain period during those 16 years worked together, a very close relationship with another company, also a construction company. And also I think Maarten has learned there a lot of things, where also now today we say, look, this is something we should do as well, or we rather not do. So it's, I think it's good to have some experience, or it doesn't maybe necessarily need to be your own experience, but maybe have a team member that has some experience might help too. Because otherwise it might be sometimes lonely, and I think if I remember well, you were also started at KBC
yes.
at a certain point. I think that's also a very good learning school where you have a big network where you can rely on other or learn from other people.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise it might be very difficult.
Yeah, I remember back when we started, I think the startup hype was even a bit bigger than it is today.
Yep.
But it was 2016, 2017 that we really started. 2017 that we really started the business.
Yep.
And we had an idea, and we didn't have a product yet, just a vision. But if you wanted, you could go to an accelerator program every evening of the day, every evening of the week.
Yeah.
It was and it's good, but I also think a lot of companies lost themselves in that. Like in the, it's so cool, and let's talk with other entrepreneurs. But at the end of the day, you need to get stuff done, and you're not going to get stuff done at the 20th. Let's get together and get some drinks and brainstorm sessions. So for us, we had like a little bit of a love and hate. Hate is a strong word, but it was a love and skeptical position towards all these accelerator programs. But nevertheless, we had tremendous benefit of a couple of them. I remember we went to the Climate Kick Accelerator program, which was a European program, which was just amazing. Were a couple of Dutch a couple of Dutch entrepreneurs who already sold their business. And they were just doing it from, they charged some consultancy fee to the EU, but they were basically there to give you, in the most Dutch way possible, straightforward, critical feedback on your idea and the progress you made in the last month. So every month we needed to go there. That was just an amazing program. And because those guys, they had nothing to lose. They were just there to help you, but in a really direct, no bullshit way. So it was very hard at times. But looking back on it, it was very, very valuable. What's the future for Mobble? How do you look at the next couple of months and years?
It's a good question. Of course, like I said, we want to grow. I have to, like I said, I should count how many projects we have done so far. So in 2020 was, of course, not a lot. We had the luck that we could start with a project where we could build immediately 6 houses. So that was kind of lucky for us. But that meant also that we had to go and look for a factory or a big place in order to install everything we needed to build those houses, because building a house is not something you can do in your backyard, of course.
Is that the project we did together?
Yes, that was our first project, in fact. And then after that, we needed to invest time and money in marketing. We didn't have a logo at that moment yet. We didn't have a website. We didn't have pictures. So all these kind of things we did in order to fill that sales pipeline. And so that's something we 2020 was kind of a good year, starting with the 6 houses. Then we built another house. This year was a little bit slow at the beginning because that sales pipeline had to be filled. And as you know, we also, of course, you need the approval from the government and so on to build a house. So it all takes time. It's not that if your customer says, yes, we want to build with Mobble, that we can start tomorrow. Of course, a lot of things need to be done before we can start building. So in this year, we had a good year, but especially for next year. In fact, we think about doubling the sales volume next year, or more or less by 2.5, because we have a lot of projects already in the pipeline. We see a lot of people contacting us because they and that's a little bit, I think, also what we see today is because of the high raw material pricing, because of the high energy costs, that people, and that's our experience at least, that people start looking at alternatives. They say, look, the traditional way of building a house is not affordable anymore. Let's look at what alternatives we have, and that's also how they come up with Mobble, of course. So that's the ambition is, like I said, to double or maybe to triple our sales volume for next year. And then we want to continue growing, and then we would look also into the because today we are building private houses. Then we would also like to look into the project market, because again we believe that volumes, when we get bigger volumes, and of course if we can build houses that more or less look a little bit similar, like for instance 10 houses where you have 2 by 2, for instance, where you have, of course, a lot of similarity, but also different houses. That's, of course, for us, this might be a very good, this kind of projects would be very good for us. And so that's where we're going to start looking into. Today we have already some contacts with with companies that do this kind of project. But I hope for next year to close some of those deals, so we can really grow and see how we can speed up our production process, because that's what we hope for.
Sounds like a great plan.
I
think based on everything what I've heard today, it sounds very promising.
Yeah.
Kristof, what we always try to do at the end is to switch it a little bit around, because we always talk about the construction and the environment and the challenges, but we like to end on a lighting note. So I'm going to ask maybe a little bit more open personal questions.
Okay.
If you could have a drink with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
It's a difficult question, I would say. I think in Belgium we have a lot of nice companies, nice entrepreneurs. And I would maybe pick Wouter Torfs, because I really think what he's doing is great. Like we've mentioned it, working with people is something that is not always easy, but it's building a nice or good team is really essential for your company. And I don't know him personally, but I would like to talk and see how he has done certain things, because he has been Employer of the Year a couple of times, I think already. And when there is in the paper, when I can read something about him, I always like to do, because I really believe that he is doing great. Again, working with people is not always easy, and I would like to learn from him.
Interesting answer. I once had dinner with him. I once sat next to him. Yeah. Okay. So when we were after the first year of our commercialization, we won an award, the Bison Award.
Okay.
I don't know if it still exists, but it was to celebrate the collaboration that we did with Van Hout and Pro, who produces the furniture.
Yep.
As the best joint venture of the year. Okay. And he was also nominated for a startup that he was working with, and it was with fixed places, and they sat me down, and a couple of minutes later, Wouter set himself down, and very pleasant guy. Yeah, I had a good couple of laughs with him for sure.
Okay, yeah.
Very down to earth.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Yeah.
And you learned something about his way of working together with people, or maybe that was not the topic of the day?
No, that was not the topic of the day. It was more a lighter conversation.
Okay.
Plus, I was sat at the table, and there were definitely more important and bigger people to talk to than just me. But no, it was fun.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. Maybe a final one to end with. Let's see. I don't know if you read a lot, but is there a certain book that you think, wow, if there's one I can advise to anyone listening, you should definitely give that a read during the end of the year?
Well,
next holiday?
I'm not reading that often, to be
Okay.
honest, but I think I can recommend something. In fact, we were honored to be in a TV program last year. We
Okay.
were in a program of Gilles Peters. Gilles Peters had the program Wat houdt ons tegen? And it's about climate change. So it really gives a history of what happened in the past, why are certain things what they are today, what happened, and also there are a lot of interesting speakers about, well, how can we change certain things. Also interesting companies such as Mobble was there, but I found it very interesting. So I would really recommend to watch it. But she also has a book, Gilles Peters, and so if you want, you can also read her book. I have it. I got it as a present, but I was not able to read it yet. But also, it's on my to-do list. But so my recommendation would be, or you watch the TV program. It's 5 parts. It's not only about construction industry. But of course, construction industry is part of it. It's a big part of it. But it's like I said, about climate change, a very hot topic today, and. So this is my recommendation.
Wonderful. I assume we can find it online, because then we will put it in the show notes.
Yes, yeah,
all right.
You can find it. Yeah.
So everyone listening, just in Spotify or in Apple Podcast, just click on the description of this episode, and then you can click, and then you can go and watch it. Kristof, to finish off, is there anything else you want to say to the audience? Anything else that we didn't discuss today?
Not really. I was, like I said, I was honored to be here. Thank you so much. I hope we can do some projects in the future. Would be very good, because I think our products are also complementary.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be nice to work together again.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I wish Bao Living also a lot of success in the future.
Thank you very much. I can only 100% agree with that statement. We already did the project. I think was your first and one of our first as well, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
A lot has changed, but let's see what we can do in the future, because as you say, the visions are very much aligned.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Everyone that's listening, if you want to learn more about Mobble, mobble.be, I assume.
Yep.
I will also put it in the show notes. And thank you, everyone, if you joined in and listened till here. Thank you very much, and we wish you a very pleasant day, whatever time or moment you're listening to right now. All right. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Bao Podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe to our channel. If you're interested in Bao Living and our Smart Adaptable Module or SAM, go check out our website baoliving.com. If you want to stay up to date, you can best subscribe to our monthly newsletter on our website, or follow us on all social media platforms where we're named @Bao Living.